All right, so this is Mike. He's 51 years old. This is 475-pound deadlift that he hits for a 20-pound lifetime PR, right? A recent PR at 450 pounds, and he just beat it by 20 whole pounds. The reason why I want to show him is because he's an excellent client who follows programming to the T, and so this allowed me to show exactly how a perfect response to programming and specifically what I want to focus on today can work. And so what I'm wanting to elaborate on is how the textbook answer of being in the 80% for strength training is in fact true, and it's definitely useful, but it's short-lived, and that's a beginner status, right? After several weeks, we need to move away from those grinding heavy sets, and we need to dial it back to more volume. And I want to talk about the reason why and how we can productively make this happen. So essentially, Mike, like I said, hit a 20-pound PR, and it took 4 months to do it. And this is essentially what happened. So to preface it all, as you get stronger, the higher intensity work is harder to recover from, right? So essentially what I'm saying is intensity is disproportionate to recovery. So you're doing less total work with more total fatigue, right? The juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. So to give an example, as your body adapts to the work you place on it, let's say you're at 3 sets of 5 at 225 pounds, and that's where you're kind of stalled out at. That's about 3,000 total pounds of work, right? In order to create more work, more adaptation, you need to break homeostasis. And the way you break homeostasis is putting on more work than the body has been accustomed to. So transitioning that example, if I go 5 sets of 5 at 200 pounds, right, that's 25 pounds less. That's less intensity, but I've done more work, 5 sets of 5. That's now 5,000 pounds of work, right? That's just shy of 2,000 pounds of extra work to break homeostasis. So I've lowered the intensity, yet increased work, increased more volume, and this is how I'm able to continue to increase my strength without grinding to a halt, staying in the extremely taxing higher percentage work. So again, just in order to accommodate more work being done, you have to do lower intensities. We have to transition from the 80% down to the 70%. So what this exactly looked like for Mike, like I said, thankfully he's a very compliant client, so I get to brag about him and his precision work on exactly what we programmed for him. So there was 3 months of what I would consider a developmental state, and then 1 month being the display state. So what I want you to pay attention to is the textbook response that I just talked about, right? Volume increases and the intensity is actually decreasing the closer he gets to this new lifetime PR. So in the first 3 months, he did 415 total deadlift repetitions or variations of the deadlift. Right, month 1, he was at just shy of 100 reps, and only 15 of these reps were at 80%. Right, so month 2, notice volume has gone up. He's now at 136 deadlift repetitions. None of these repetitions were above 80% or at 80%. And then month 3, again, notice more volume, 180 repetitions, and none of them are at or above 80%. In fact, this last month, he was at 62%. Technically, it was a variation deadlift, so probably a little bit higher intensity, but still way under the 80% mark. So notice volume continued to go up and intensity remained going down or stayed down. So only 3% of all the repetitions he done in the last 3 months were at 80% or greater. And then over 60% of those repetitions were in the 70%, right? The 70% essentially are the money makers for strength training as we transition out from being beginners. So what happened on the 4th month is we went into what I would call display mode, right? So I don't want to say it was a peak month or anything like that, right? He's not training up for a meet, but it still brings across the understanding that there's development and then there's display. So after these 3 months of accumulated fatigue, essentially, we transitioned away from all the volume and focused on higher intensities, right? So the higher intensities were display and practice, developing, or not developing rather, but practicing the potential of what was already developed. So there was only one single top set per week on the deadlift, as opposed to two deadlift training sessions a week with lots of volume in each session. He's now only doing one deadlift session, and there was only one single working set on this fourth month. So what this did for us was the accumulation of the 3 months of fatigue was dissipated by the reduction of volume. Simultaneously, we were able to amp up his intensity to display the potential of the newly developed musculature, right? So the last 3 months was a lot of fatigue, but also a lot of development on the musculature. And then when we cranked up intensity and took away the volume, we were able to focus on the actual contraction of the muscle specific to strength. So that's how he was able to get a 20-pound PR by focusing on his total work increasing, right? And the way we have to do that is decrease the intensity. So what his actual program looked like, I have it pulled up right here, focusing on the yellow parts. These are his deadlifts and deadlift variations. Notice the first month, this was the highest intensity and the lowest volume. So he was about 15, 16 repetitions on the actual deadlift. We had power cleans in there. Again, we were far away from his display, so this was more of like an active recovery movement, similar movement to deadlift, but not very important, not specific to what he was doing. So the next month that we had here was right here, right? We went to a variation deadlift. Notice he's at 18 total repetitions on his actual primary deadlift day, up from the 15, 16. And then we actually added in a second demanding deadlift day of another 15, 16 repetitions. So again, the volume went up and the intensity went down. Notice he's only at 265 pounds versus the 385 at the last month. And then moving on to the third month, the final month, he only went up to just shy of 300 pounds, 21 total repetitions. But again, it was at a tempo status, so there's more time under tension. I would consider this more volume. But notice he's not at anywhere near where he started in terms of weight. The first month he was at 385 pounds. Now he's only working at 295. And then finally, we get to the display month. Notice one single top set of deadlifts, one set of 5 across until we got to the fourth week. He hit that set of 5 and then just went for a 1 rep max and killed it by 20 pounds, right? A textbook response to the accumulation of fatigue, lower intensity. And then when it came time to do intensity, we displayed it and he killed it. Barbell good mornings right here. Again, this was essentially like the power cleans, just more of an active recovery, not a whole lot of weight to them. But that's exactly how Mike got his 20-pound PR. Intensity is great, and there's a time to work intensity, but it's for display only. And again, the 80%, the textbook answers, those are good for beginners and learning what heavy is. But after a few weeks, you've got to start putting in more work. So that's all I got, and that's how we made Mike hit a 20-pound PR.